Um, yeah, something very interesting came up for me. So mine was on the section Healing Death, Facing and Healing All Power Person Issues Frees Me from the Cause of Death in Me. So there are lots of issues. Control, fear, emotional pain, addiction, authority or no authority, being right, belonging, loneliness, debt, dependence, value, support. But when I was thinking about this, um, the facing, the facing to heal, facing and healing. Interestingly, my sister has this syndrome affecting her face, her vocal cords. It's called Mage syndrome. I don't know if
Hmm.
you've ever heard of it, but it affects all these nerves. And so whenever she is not speaking or crying, her eyes are shutting. So it's some
That's interesting.
sort of a, yeah. Yeah, but hers is the face and mine is the back. So
Hmm.
um, it just it just brought up some interesting things for me. Thinking about how differently we're both like dealing or not dealing with these power person issues.
Right.
So,
Well,
yeah, a lot of worksheets.
yeah, well, as we were saying yesterday, it's a process. I know for me, I had, when I talk about father-son relationships, I had like mega stuff with my dad. And early in doing this work through some, pretty heavy duty trauma and abuse, on a personal level, and got to the point where I could, what's the best word for it? Sort of connect with my dad in a pretty clear space. But I realized, and it was actually recently, like within the last few months, that I did a still point session where I was able to, well, you've heard me talk about my granddaughter and how like just, connected we are. And I was doing a still point session. My dad came into it, and I've always, or since I've worked through some of that heavier stuff, been able to sort of be there, but it was always like this, arm's length type of thing. And it was just recently that I did a still point session, and I was able to literally embrace him as deeply and as sweetly as I'm able to embrace my granddaughter. And to me, that was like, oh, I'm finally finished with that one. When you think about it, how many generations has that stuff been going on with fathers and sons and alcohol and abuse? Dad was an alcoholic. It's like, how crazy can it get? So it to clear out, to me, that recent session was for me a symbol that I was finally complete with that process inside of me generationally. And that came about, I don't know, a year and a half or so on the heels of that request I shared yesterday about my generations asking for support in cleaning up the darkness. And I feel like the two were connected, that which I did a year and a half or so ago when I very enthusiastically said, yes, I will help to do this. It feels to me like, as I really connect to it, that it was part of what facilitated being able to come to that level of connectedness with my dad.
That willingness.
When you look at the mass of what this database holds, and if we're functioning out of the database, we're functioning out of a self that isn't. I mean, literally, when Yeshua says, in order for you to live, you've got to die. If the true being that we are is ever going to live as that original newborn essence, then all the generational stuff that's been resonated into this picture in our minds of who we think we are, who we were told we are, that we're bodies and we're slaves and we're whatever. It's a big transition. So holding the space for every layer of that to accelerate, for me, it was a process of, as I did that work, developing the tools, because there was nowhere that I could find it. It was a developmental process. And to me, that's one of the reasons for doing the best I can to refine these tools and hand them to people that, like I spent 50 years full-time developing them. Not many people are going to take the time or have the time or wherewithal to do that. And so to shorten that time, to hand people the tools and shorten it so people don't have to take decades and decades to go through it. To me, that's one of the gifts of being able to bring this work forward.
Yes, and so I have a question. Something came up for me as you were sharing that, and it looks like I've got unstable internet again today, so I apologize. I have no idea what's going on. It's another
You
beautiful
sound
day.
pretty solid. You haven't broken up at all yet, so
Okay, good.
like you were yesterday.
So in some of the interpretations that I'm reading, one of the blogs in particular about A Course in Miracles, and it says that everything that we have is what we want, and that when you talk about
Yeah.
having to do this work for 50 years and then still having breakthrough moments, and it kind of, there's this temporary thought of like, well, it's hopeless for me then, I'm 68 years old. But what is it that is wanting the suffering?
Well, two things. Back about 7 or 8 months ago, we had a woman call into the radio show. She had done our codependence, interdependence online intensive in 2022, I believe. She was 80 when she did that. She called into the show, what is that, maybe 6 months ago, Jeannie? Actually, she called in twice to say, I started doing this work at 80, and I am living in such delight like I've never experienced in my life. Because she took the tools and she put them to work. So, it's there's no hopeless. It's like, gee, if I have to invent a wheel and I have to design an axle and I have to make a motor and I have to put a body on a car, God, that's going to take me a long, long time. But if somebody hands me a car, I can get it and drive. To me, what we've done with these tools is, here's the car, here, drive it, and you're going to collapse the time frame in which it takes to do that. When the Course talks about you have everything you want, that's exactly 1000% true. And most people think their wanter is in their heads, and they go, well, I didn't ask for that. Right, your wanter isn't in your head, it's in your heart. You're unconscious. And that is the accumulation of energetic data over the generations is what was called the unconscious, the heart, or the desert. And when Yeshua says, take care of the heart, for out of it are the issues in life, he's saying, you got to go into your wanter, which is unconscious. And my offering is that the unconscious is a totally unnatural condition for a human being. We should function with a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. That I would offer is our design. We artificially create an unconscious via denial. Now, if you talk to the average psychologist today, they'll tell you 80, 85, 90, as much as maybe 98% of our so-called thinking is unconscious. So take care of the heart, for out of it, the unconscious, for out of it are the issues in life. Generations and generations and generations of denial, dissociation, and projection have made for a monstrous size unconscious mind. And that's where the wanter is. And a wanter has got nothing to do with, oh, this is what I want to have. It's got to do with, my power person demonstrated to me that the way to stay safe was to rage. So what do I do with my son now? I rage at him because that's how I stay safe when he threatens me, as though my 2-year-old son could possibly threaten me. But if my 2-year-old son can resonate the file in my mind of unresolved childhood dynamics with my power person, my 2-year-old son can become the greatest threat in my life if I'm seeing him through the fear filter. Remember, there are 3 filters in the mind. There's hostility, there's fear, and there's Rahma. Rahma only allows the mind to use data, conscious, subconscious data, that's key to love in building our realities, our behavior driving realities. There's fear. When fear is active, the only data that my mind can use in building my reality about any object of attention, anything I look at, including my 2-year-old son, the only data I can use is that's what's based in threat. So if fear is active, the 2-year-old becomes a threat to me in my construct. And if hostility is active, then the only data that my mind can use, and if people don't know how the mind works any more than they know how the transmission works in the car, how do they drive their minds? They can't. But if hostility is active, the only data, the only quality of perceptual raw data that's available to build my perception when hostility is active is that which is threatening. So a person can look, a 6'8", 280-pound muscle man can look at his 2-year-old son, and his mind builds a reality called threat. And this child, which he cherishes so deeply, all of a sudden in that threat shakes him to death. Like, you think about how could that happen? When you understand how the mind works, it's easy to understand how that happens. And then having the tools to clean that out, to rid ourselves of the unconscious. So that, and Carl Jung says it so powerfully in like just ABC. He says, until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct our lives, and we'll call it fate. Oh, well, life's doing it. It's fate. That's the way it is. And Yeshua is the only person I know of that knew how to make the unconscious conscious in a reliable way, and it's called forgiveness. Actually, I did a quantum stillpoint session last year with a gentleman who's a Jungian, trained in Jungian analysis. And after his session, he's like, this is it. He said, this is the piece that was missing from Carl Jung's work. Because Carl Jung didn't know how to make the unconscious. Well, you can lay on the couch for 25 years and have a conversation with a therapist for $200 an hour. Or you can take Yeshua's forgiveness sheet and start to use it, put it to work, and you'll continuously go through a process of making the unconscious conscious. And the more you're willing to breathe and the more you're willing, the faster that process is going to go. And you clean up your wanter, which I would offer is in the unconscious. Hostility protected my father, he told me, from the enemy. Therefore, hostility must be good. I want hostility. Now, hostility is a horribly offensive energy to the cell. But if I put that in my wanter, because my power person taught me that it kept me safe, then, rage is a good friend. People, I've had all kinds of people arguing about how great their anger is and how it serves them and how it gives them energy, And it's like, okay, I got it. So you're in trauma, you're in pain, so you don't function very well. You go into rage and you can take action. But the action's always stupid relative to functioning out of a mind connected to love that's energized by Ragma, by active present love, instead of what your power person demonstrated. So to me, the forgiveness process, a la first century Aramaic Yeshua, the worksheet process, is how you access what's in your wanter and delete it. If in today's mind, you say, for 100 generations, my power persons, their power persons, their power really thought this was good stuff. Now I realize it's really dumb and I'm getting rid of it. You'd be free of it. Does that make sense for you?
Julie, you're muted, Julie, just FYI.
It's sign language.
Yeah, I'm excited about what you're saying, but I don't want to interrupt, so it's good that I'm muted for now. Thank you, though, Kim.
Okay, we lost Terry for a second. Here she is.
Can you hear?
You're back.
I can hear you, yes.
Yeah, I
So
never know.
does that fit? Does that make sense?
Yes, and I don't want to get rid of my so-called negative emotions permanently because I just want to be able to use them correctly.
So my offering would be there is no correct use for what we call negative emotions. A toxic energy is a toxic energy. All that an emotion is, remember the opening words in John, mind energy becomes flesh. Literally, we think a thought. What they're proving in the cell biologist laboratory is that thought becomes a molecule inside of our structure, an actual called a neuropeptide. The neuropeptide circulates around in our structure, and it finds a receptor site in a cell that matches, and the neuropeptide, literally the thought, the energetic pattern called thought, lands on the cell. My offering is when it lands on the cell gives us a warning signal we call emotions. There is no proper use of a toxic energy based in hostility or fear. No, you don't want to learn to use them properly. You want to eradicate them. The mind, energy connected and coming from being, from love, will always serve you. I mean, the non-being mind can say, well, yeah, but gee, this turned out not too bad when I did this rage at this person. Yeah, well, we don't talk anymore. We're divorced and, it's all over, but, I'm doing okay today. Yeah, but look what it did to your life. If love had been, if Rahma, which Yeshua says is the first thing, if you're going to function as a human being, you need to keep this condition in your mind. If you're functioning out of Rahma, then you're going to have the highest and best outcomes in every circumstance that's possible. So to me, the objective is if I'm in some form of hostility or fear, and the average person in hostility or fear, let's say there's an interaction based in hostility or fear and two people walk away, each having a conversation about the other. Yeah, they did, and there it is, and then, which means they're both in denial. If I walk away from an interaction with someone and my conversation's about what you did wrong, and I think, I'm having this whole thing about what you did, that's a mental illness.
Okay.
That's my mental illness. And when I resolve my mental illness, if I have a conflict with someone, I walk away having a conversation about me and what I need to do to clean up my life, to clean up my mind, to clean up the way I interact and the results I produce. Now I'm a sane human being. Rahma, first law. It's literally a filter in the frontal lobes of the brain that is a gateway that brings human life into the human form. When that gateway is blocked, and it is blocked by the activity of either hostility or fear, there's no human life available. I mean, people say, how could a human being do those atrocities, those genocide? How could that happen? It can't happen. Someone who's able to do something like that has no human life. It is totally and completely been obliterated. It's still there. Fortunately, it's always there, shiny and new, ready to come in, but there's got to be a gateway for it to come in. And when the other two, with the alternative gateways are active, hostility or fear, then everything one looks at, every object of attention one looks at is either threatening or irritating. And there's no proper use for threat or irritation, would be my offering. If you're going to function as a human being, first law, Rahman, got to keep that gateway open. And what happens when that gateway is open, aside from human life, the truth about you being present, is that the mind now has a filter active. So it's a dual thing. It's a gateway and it's a filter. And the filter eradicates everything based in threat and irritation. It can't pass through there. We've got a window and it's a hot sunny day and the sun's coming in and the room's overheated. What do? We put a filter on to block the infrared so the room cools down. When hostility or fear is active, the heat's coming through the window. When Rahma is active, that blocks the heat coming through the window. Those energies just can't get through they're just not there. Does that make sense for everybody?
So to add to that, if you hold hostility or fear, or grief, shame, guilt, any of those, then what you need is for something or someone to come along to show it to you. So you do get what you need.
Somebody's going to dance to your tune. Somebody's going to
Right.
play it out right square in your face.
And I'm including in the notes several links on the website. One of them is an explanation of Rockman Kuba filters. One is got 3 MP3s of shows that we did on shame, guilt, and grief. And then also the schematics of the mind about the filters. So I'm including that in the notes that I'll send you.
Great. Awesome. Thank you,
I have
sweetie.
a quick question, Jeannie. Do those notes come with the Vimeo, or how do we access them a day
Yes.
later?
I will send
Get
you
an
an
email.
email. I'll send you an email
Oh,
that
good.
has all of the notes and links in it. And then it'll also have the links to the Vimeo.
Yeah.
And
And once
yesterday's
the
too.
video's rendered, then
Yeah.
that'll all be sent to you later,
Oh, awesome, 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 awesome.
along with the 29 sets of MindShifters.
Good, okay,
All
let's
right.
go for it.
Okay, and I have another question.
Please
if
go
that's
for it.
okay. Okay, so everything is energy. It's all around us all the time. It's always here.
Right?
There is a phrase that comes to mind that I heard. I actually think it was Thomas Leonard that said this. Coach Phil, he's called the father of coaching. The environment always wins.
If you're unconscious, the environment governs, rules the game. Yes. If Rachma is not present, I would agree with that. If active present love is in you, then active present love always guides the day.
Okay.
Otherwise,
I love
yes, the
that.
environment runs. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
So, you know, an example for this whole story that I've been putting together. We all know, let's say, the situation of the woman who was being horribly abused in her marriage, and maybe we were part of the group that went and rescued her, got her into a safe place, and and held her abuser accountable. And she was safe, and I mean, her life had been threatened. She ended up in the hospital for 2 months, and we finally got her out of that environment into a safe place. And about a month later, we called her and had a conversation. And what did she say? But I love him. And went back. In fear, she could see nothing but threatening and was, yes, get me out of here. Save me, save me, save me. When fear and hostility, literally as energetic patterns in her mind, kind of decayed, died away as energy does, what came forward was, oh, that's not visible anymore. I love him. And what'd she do? She went back. It only took her about 2 minutes to remember why she left, right? Oh, let's give, you there, Terry? Give Terry a chance to reconnect. You reconnected, Terry? Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay. So it only took her about 2 minutes to remember why she left, because almost instantly the fear filter was activated and she was totally feeling threatened. But then what occurred? What occurred is the hostility filter stepped in and took over. And she took him apart piece by piece. Because she didn't see anything to be afraid of anymore. Her mind didn't produce a reality of fear over what this monster had done to her. In her hostility, all she could see was threat, and bang, she took him apart. There was nothing to fear. So when Yeshua says, Brahma is the first, basically the question they ask him, what's most important if you're going to be a human being, truly be a human being, what's most important? You got to have this filter active in your mind. There's not even a word for it in English, so of course it hasn't been very available. There isn't a word for it in Greek, one of the predecessor languages to ours. There's a word in Latin. There's no such concept.
Okay.
Everybody breathe on that. Was that fit? Does that make sense?
I want to hear more about what she did. She beat the shit out of the guy, and then what? I mean, it isn't. I mean, isn't there a healing thing for her?
If she steps into healing, absolutely. But
Because, I mean,
in that scenario, the most likely thing next was, oh my God, what have I done? Look how terrible I am. Now comes her guilt, and the cycle just continues unless she has something to interrupt the cycle. Because literally, that example where the mind energy becomes flesh, it hits the cell warns us the quality of the energy we're engaging in. It's either active present love, it's fear, or it's hostility. And if we were looking, when that neuropeptide lands on the cell, the receptor site, if we were looking inside, if we were inside the cell and looking at the neuropeptide enter, what we'd be seeing entering the cell is what we call chemistry. The so-called chemistry of hostility or fear is destructive to the cell. It's sin. It's off the mark. It doesn't belong in the cell. And so what does she do? She either she has some tools and does something about it, or her life continues. She gets rid of the bum, and then she goes and finds another one. Then she gets rid of that bum and goes and finds another one. And does that fit for you, Tim?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's the dance of death, right? Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And we're not designed to die. We have records of people living to be 1,000, 800, 900, 1,000 years of age. We're not designed to die. And it's not, death is not caused by time. If you've been listening to the radio show a couple of times in the last week or two, I've quoted from a medical conference way back, early days, 40 years ago, in doing this work. And I went to a medical conference, and there was a researcher from a place called the DeCourcy Clinic in Cincinnati. And they were researching aging. And like the quote was so like in my face, it burned into my brain. I heard it once. And what the researchers said is, what they came up with doing medical research is time is not toxic. Time has no effect on human tissue under any conditions. It is a belief in the effect of time by those who subscribe to such a belief that acts as a poison. But because we do these toxic, death-producing energetic patterns over time, it looks like time must be the enemy. If we stop doing it, then time, what we consider to be the effect on physiology of time, reverses. When we engage in forgiveness, the removal of the things that create the deleterious effects. And you've got the Avicen. My take is that the Avicen literally is physical forgiveness. It's doing on a physiological level what the forgiveness process is doing on the mental, emotional level. It just reinforces it. It's literally physiological forgiveness. Reverses aging. So that, when you put your hand in the Avicen, the physiological effect of undoing things is, it's literally forgiveness. Does that hit where you were heading, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, it's Michael, I mean, you could write 3 books on what you just said. So, I mean, I'm trying to absorb some of that. I mean, I got it all for sure. But I don't want to step on Terry. You're in the middle of your thing, right, Terry?
No. I'm completely through. Yes, please go.
Yeah, no, I mean, what you were talking about, the abuse of the abused wife and all that stuff. When you brought that story up, I got angry, and I'm like, why am I reacting to this? And it's just because I keep hearing that story, and I get angry because you know, I've been on the reverse side of that dance
Mm,
the
yeah.
way I feel like it. And because I was abused as a kid by an older sister, and it's been my thing. Like your thing with
Right.
your dad, it's been my thing. It's like,
Got it.
God, am I gonna, like, when am I mean, I've been working on this for 35 years. It's like, oh my God.
Can I offer a different reason why you get angry?
Sure.
My offering isn't you don't get angry because you're abused by your sister as a kid, that you're on the reverse side of that. My offering is that anger comes up because it's your anesthetic to the pain that you've not resolved yet around abuse in your family system, which probably is not, I mean, your personal experiences with your sister, but it probably in the family system did not start there. But anger, people tend to think of or tell us that anger is an emotion. My offering is anger is not an emotion. Anger is an internally produced drug, an internally produced anesthetic that we use when pain is resonated to, just like taking a shot of whiskey. And so over the years, many times I've suggested to people is take your 12-step tools and apply them exactly to hostility as you would to alcohol. And recognize you can't be a user anymore. You've got to stop using that substance, which is a challenge because, of course, you know, if it's alcohol, you can always say, okay, so I'm not going to the liquor store again. There's none in the house. So when it comes up, it's not there to use. But the fact that anger is internally produced and it's free and you don't have to go to the liquor store, it's a whole different level of challenge to become free of that addiction. But take everything you've done in the world of addiction work and apply it to anger and, you know, create an Hostilities Anonymous group.
And yeah, I mean, I think anger stays with me pretty a relatively short period of time. You know, we're taught that we can't enjoy anger as addicts. We're taught that we leave that to people better able to handle anger. So we're not kind of, you know, the recovery community is not really allowed to spend a whole lot of time in anger, or not
Right.
allowed, but suggested.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
you know, I guess under the anger was hurt. And in that hurt that came up was not from being abused, but the hurt that came up was, oh, they're like, it's a woman again, they're worried about. And, you know, not the gender thing. This is
Right.
the whole response we have of the masculine and feminine, the gender war I think we have
Well,
going
yeah,
on.
it goes on both sides of that equation.
Yeah.
You know, I know over the years with my take is that at least 70% of both men and women in our culture have been sexually abused. And along with the sexual abuse comes physical and emotional abuse. It's not, you know, one gender or the other for sure.
Right. No,
And it's insane.
right. And the abuse, you know, I guess, you know, the abuse is so interesting because I'm not a physical abuser. So, you know, abused become abusers. I'm just more discreet in using avoidance and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
like you mentioned, she goes back with hostility. You know, it's kind of like, oh, that's interesting. How that kind of works. And the reason why it's topical, why it hit me on is we after our session yesterday and how we slept. And I mean, it's so powerful, right? I understand why we're doing this recap. And I did, you know, my still point. I went to bed last night and did more writing on my still point, which was great. But, you know, which is I deserve to be cherished just because the creator put the breath of life in me. And I did the writing and kind of, I only did it 2 or 3 times, but you know, I didn't have any resistance to it. I'm like, God, I'm really, you know, I didn't have a lot of resistance to break the blocks down.
Right.
But so I was able to go to sleep, but then, you know, I had a lot of drama. I have, you know, an 18-year-old daughter that's out running around partying in New York City last night. I have my son driving through the Midwest across the country with his girlfriend. And I have an ex-wife who's saying, make sure, I don't like that girlfriend. What are we going to do? And, it's like, I have a son that, is in, whatever, in the middle of Connecticut. I don't know where he is tonight. That's like 17. So I had a lot going on. And what happens is, nowadays things change or a lot. I mean, so this thing called Life 360. So you can literally see your kids where they are all over the country,
Right.
and they give you alerts and they're tracking you, and I'm like, oh my God. And I'm sitting there looking at my daughter in Manhattan last night. I'm like, where's she going? It's like 1 a.m, and I'm like, oh my God. Finally, after texting my son, said, don't get that girl pregnant, and, all this craziness, right? And I finally went to bed and I couldn't sleep.
This would make a great comedy routine. Pardon me, but
I'm so sorry for dumping this.
no, dump it. That's what we're here for.
No, anyway, so I I was in that space and I'm like, okay, guide me. And I got up and I started looking through my books and I pull out this book on sometimes it's just you get guided to the right thing. I'm like, what's going on? And I pull out this book that I haven't looked at called Creative Couples. And I open it up and it's a quote from Carl Jung. And, it's like, what did he say? He said, we must make our mistakes. We must live out our own vision of life. There will be error. If you avoid error, you do not live. And and I guess it's apropos to my son because the drama was about, it's so clear my son's like being controlled by this girlfriend of his. And he's a people pleaser, right? Total codependent, like, and he's me. Okay. I mean, he's me, but I got 35 years of recovery in this, of growth.
Your unconscious mind hang out in true living color and Dolby sound.
Yeah. Yeah. And I immediately went to this generational stuff. I mean, it's like, oh, wow. So he's got what I got. And then he's got what his mom's got. And, it's, and the only thing I could think of was just don't get her pregnant. I mean,
And all of that gives you the opportunity to look at everything you don't resolve.
right.
And when you resolve it energetically, when you resolve it in you, that'll be one less energetic pattern that radiates to him that helps to keep him in the pattern. As
Perfect.
long as you haven't resolved, you're an energy field that is a spark for that particular dynamic to show up in your life. Who's going to show up with any unconscious dynamic I hold in me faster? But my own children who have the same energetic structure within them. And, there's nothing we know of in the world that can stop the high energy wave that leaves the mind when we think a thought. And it doesn't matter where, he is or she is or they are. As long as, and when they do what they do and up it comes, there's where the idea would be to apply the worksheet process and forgive in me what helps to perpetuate that in them energetically. It's like, okay, I'm 1 vote, son, for you to go get her pregnant. And, what I most don't want you to do. And of course, if I say, don't think about the color of your car, what moves in your mind? The color of your car. If I say, don't get her pregnant, if that's my thought, if that's my focus, what am I energetically sending to him as a message? Get her pregnant.
Well, I think she's the one that's going to target him, but whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. And my suggestion would be that you take that mind shifter that resonated all of this so powerfully and put your sister's name in it.
give what we want.
Are you
Yeah, I get
breathing?
that.
Yeah. So that might take that mind shifter to another level, is to specifically really make it personal with your sister.
I can see a connection too with, you said your sister, like controlling, abusing you, and your fear of this girl controlling and abusing your son.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right
no,
on,
it's
man.
it's generational because I've seen the same pattern of some of my siblings as well. So it's not, it's like, why is this happening? So yeah, I mean, it's it's that unconscious part, and what because I woke up thinking, okay, I needed some solutions because I went further and read more about Carl Jung and his wife and then his mistress that he worked with. And he had this triangle dynamic, right? Going on.
Right.
And two wives, right? And so I started thinking like, because I started working on this dynamic with this crazy ex-girlfriend with Jeannie, 2 years ago, and I've done really well with it, right? Thank God, Jeannie. And I've done really well with it, but but I'm still working, right? I'm still working through this stuff, and life is
Yep.
good. There's no crisis, thank God, but it's good. But after I read the Carl Jung thing and then the triangle, my unconscious started taking this information like, oh, well, maybe I need my muse back, and maybe I need her back, right? And so I started allowing the triangle in my life. Maybe I can make this work with two women, and like Carl Jung, I'm very much of a sponge. If whoever I hang out with, I will become if I like what I see. So I started thinking that, and then I slept like a baby, like I haven't slept in a year. Okay, and then I showed up late I slept like a baby. I'm like, and so that went in. And I brought that energy of my abuser in, and I slept like a baby, and it healed that. And then we come back to this, and you're like saying, well, the one part Carl didn't get was this unconscious, element. So it almost, I feel like the intelligent universe kind of gave me my answer. Like, yeah, that's great, Carl, but we can take it one step further. We don't have to have that situation, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Perfect sense. Yeah.
So, Carl's one step on the ladder. I think we can continue to do better.
Well, I was kind of shocked when this fellow that I did the quantum session with afterward, he'd been doing this work for about a year, and really, he'd been through analysis. He'd studied Jungian analysis, and he just like made major changes. He called the radio show a couple of times, and he had memories going back to his father, who was in Germany, little kid, literally crawling up on bar stools drinking. He had the direct memories. He really accessed a lot of stuff. And as I say, he'd been through the Jungian training, and after the quantum StillPoint, he's like, this is the missing piece that Carl Jung didn't have. And, it's all based in that forgiveness dynamic that most of the world's turned exactly backward. So it sounds like, some worksheets on sister will be good, and that mind shifter in that direction. Worksheets on son, worksheets on daughter, worksheets on former wife, all of the above. And they're all reflecting back those energetic dynamics in you that you still have, as all of us do, to resolve. And when I think that what I have to resolve is because of them, remember our definition of denial. When I think or speak as though something outside of me is the cause of what's moving inside of me, I'm in denial. when I do that, when I think that what's out there is the cause of what's moving in me, I have to hide from myself. I have to make unconscious what the real cause is. And the real cause is this energy that's in me. But I have to dissociate from it. I literally create this unnatural, unconscious mind. I create this barrier. You know, Yeshua said the veil of the temple must be rent in twain. That wasn't a purple curtain in the church. The veil of the temple is the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious mind. Take care of the unconscious, because that's where it all comes from. It doesn't say take care of your kids or your former wife or, you know, him or dad or mom. It says take care of your own unconscious. Go in and come out of denial, because as long as I think or speak as though that is what I'm concerned about, then I dissociate from what the real concern is. I keep myself from resolving and forgiving it. And then what happens is my mind makes up the evidence to prove that it really is them. So now I have this perceptual construct that fills my conscious awareness with all the proof I needed to show that they're really the problem in my life. But then, of course, once you stop and you go, I've been through this one 87 different times with 42 different people. Maybe these perceptual constructs are all just stories that keep me from looking at what's going on inside myself.
Okay, I just got that one. That one hit home. Okay,
Nice.
yeah.
Then our job is done.
No. I'm like, wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I've been struggling with a level of denial a lot regarding work lately. And it plays right into the same abuse pattern. And
Well, the whole culture. I mean, we were trained by the age of 4. We were all trained in this blame game. I mean, I don't know of anybody that by the age of 4 was not a full-fledged, card-carrying, very devout member of the one world universal religion of blame. You know, I'm in pain because of, and they've always got a because, and it's always outside of them. All of that is total, complete denial. I'm in pain because there's an energy in me that I haven't resolved. Say it again.
Charlie Munger says the world doesn't run on greed, it runs on envy, which is envy is another form of blame, right?
Yeah. They got it. I haven't.
Yeah.
But the world really runs on the power person dynamic.
Yeah, you said that before.
Yeah. 3 behaviors. Once that dynamic is instilled in the mind, as far as I know, there is nowhere in the world you'll find this particular piece except in this work. And as long as that dynamic is in the unconscious, there are only 3 behaviors available to someone. You know, the mind has this a device called the automatic decision system. You know, this is just a piece of information to understand about how the mind works, the same way as you understand how the emergency brake works in your car. It has a function. If you don't know the functions there, you don't use the emergency brake. If you don't know that this dynamic exists, an automatic decision system, then how do you come out of automatic decisions? It runs the game. So as long as that power person dynamic remains in the mind unresolved, there are only 3 possible behaviors in someone's whole life. I don't care whether they're 2 or 22 or 200. They'll do one of 3 things, and it'll depend on the level of stress they're under. When there's little or no stress, they'll do what they did to get along with their power person. When stress starts to build, they'll do what they did to resist and survive with their power person. And when they become ultra stressed, they'll do what their power person did to them that they hated the most. Done deal. Now, we did have I presented this is probably, I don't know, when was it we did that workshop in Florida, Jeannie, maybe 20 years ago. It was shortly after we met. And there's a guy who had a very large online AA program that he had run for years. He'd been sober for 30 years. He was in Fort Lauderdale, and he had a gathering, and he asked us to speak and come and present the forgiveness work. So I did the Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop first for the group. And then we did the codependence workshop. And like, he was so delighted to have us there until I presented the codependence work. And he came to me after me and said, well, you know, that part of your work just isn't true, Michael, because when I was a kid, I was horrifically abused by my father, like horrifically. And he said, I have never hit my son. So that just isn't true. And it was like he was sort of in my face, kind of, tough guy. No, that isn't true. I said, okay, got it. Now let me ask another question. How much time do you still, I acknowledge you, first of all, you've had enough fortitude, awareness, and strength to not abuse your son, but how much time do you spend still having to control your fists? And it was like, at that moment, I could have knocked him over the feather. He said, yeah, I do that every day. I have to restrain myself. Yeah, you were able to resist abusing your son, but that didn't mean the dynamic wasn't there in you, the power person dynamic. And again, I don't care where you go in the world, that's what runs it, unless somebody's resolved that. And I don't know anywhere else where the understanding of that dynamic exists.
Well, I've a little bit been on a mission based upon exactly the story you told, the people in AA and recovery that work a good program. I've seen a pattern. I've been in for 35 years, and I've seen a pattern where, these guys get involved and they're really of service and they're doing all their things. And then inevitably they end up with Parkinson's, they end up with, Lou Gehrig's, they end up with all these diseases or a heart attack. And I look at it and I go, fuck, like, what is going on here? I says, this is not healing. Clearly it's not healing. Running around and saving the world and getting the next person sober is great to get you from stop drinking, but it's like, there's got to be something more here. The world cannot just be about service. There's something
Got to
going
do
on.
your own inner work.
Yes. Which is, by the way, the program says you can't transmit something you ain't got. So it does say do the work.
Yeah.
But
to do the work, you've got to have the tools. And as I'm aware of it, in most circles where I've worked with AA or NA people over the years, and there've been a lot of them, the definition of forgiveness is, okay, I'm going to forgive them. That piece of work, in my awareness, in circles that I've worked over the years with, that piece of work never gets done because they're still trying to forgive their father, their mother, their sister, their brother, their spouse. They're trying to forgive themselves. And that's
the tool you just gave me upon transmitting my power or my mind shifter on my sister and giving it to her is a tool that I would, pray for the person that you resent to have everything that you want.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a similar.
And if you never heal your resentment, it's all for naught. Because resentment is an internal process, got nothing to do with them.
Correct.
So on the way to quote unquote praying for them, actually petitioning for them, heal your resentment so that you are now offering what you want to the person that you treat like a cherished equal. Because that's what they are, except in the constructs of your mind that are made from your own unconscious dynamics and projected. Remember, projection isn't, I take something that's inside of me and put it outside of me. That's externalization. Projection is when I have something in me that I have not resolved and I make it into pictures of somebody else in my mind, or even make it into pictures of myself. That's projection. Psychology in the world tends to speak of projection as, putting it out there. No, that's not it. Putting it out there as a whole, it's a different thing. It's externalization. But when I recognize, when my mind serves up a pained reality, I'm projecting the energy that I've dissociated from that is hurting me into my brain's image of someone else. That's projection. And what forgiveness does, and it took me 35 years to understand this single piece of information, what forgiveness does is it recognizes that this projection, this picture that they're to blame for what I'm feeling in here, is driven by a goal. The thing that constructs, the Harvard research shows us there 10,000 brain cells are fine. There are 10,000 measurable units of electrical activity going off in here. and my perceptual construct is made of 9 bits of data. If my 9-bit mind is showing me something painful, what is it that caused, if there are 10,000 measurable units of electrical activity going on, what is it that selected the 9 bits of data my mind is using to build this pained reality? And it's my goals. There's nobody in the world that understands that principle as an original thought, except this guy named Yeshua 2,000 years ago. And the word forgive in Aramaic, remember, is shebag or shabak, and it means to cancel. So what do? I have a goal for this person. That goal is a driver that causes my mind to use this pained energy that I haven't resolved to build my picture of them. So now I project my pain into my brain's image of them. And I think that I'm really looking at them because there's a picture of a body, but the body that I'm looking at is painted on the inside of my eyeballs by my own brain. You don't see anything. You've never seen anything through your eyes. You're never going to see anything through your eyes. It's not possible to see through your eyes any more than you can rip the antenna off the back of your TV set and look in the wires and look out around the neighborhood. It's a one-way valve. The eye receives information. Information energetically comes in via light, and that information causes brain cells to fire, and the brain generates the picture based upon the goal you hold in that situation. So what's forgiveness look like? And again, it took me 35 years working full-time with this to go, oh, that's what he understood. When I cancel the goal, the picture collapses. When it collapses in on its own footprint. I now have direct access to my own unconscious mind. Oh, take care of the heart. Take care of the unconscious. How do I get into my own unconscious? You look at the goal you hold that's driving the construct that's painting you, cancel it, boom. Just like the 9/11 towers dropped into their own footprint, your pained perception drops into your own unconscious footprint, and now you have access. The unconscious has become conscious. And when love is active and present, when your own unconscious becomes conscious, it dissolves. It is transmuted in an instant. And if there are layers upon layers upon layers, then what you need is the help of a super processor, which would be another proper definition for Rukkadekuja, or the breath. It is, if you remember, you go back, and Yeshua agreed to go into the river and be baptized by John. And you got a whole big, huge church of Baptists, and they're all pouring water on each other. But if you look at that event, he went because it was a Jewish tradition to go get washed in water. But you notice he never did that. His baptism had nothing to do with water. What did he baptize people with? Well, the Greeks tell us the Spirit. If you go to the Aramaic, he baptized with the breath, Rukkadekuja, for the forgiveness of sins. What you lock in and hold your breath against and lock into the cell is now lost to you. It is unconscious. It will only be restored. The forgiveness of sins, when the breath accesses it and brings forward what needs to be healed. There's nowhere else on the planet you can find that piece of information that I know of. And I've been looking for a long time. Actually, it's in the Aramaic, and I didn't understand it until I found it in the Arabic. And it's also word for word in the Course in Miracles. There are only 2 places on the planet that I've found the exact and specific. How do you forgive? You must forgive from your heart. You must remove from your unconscious that which you projected into your brain's image of your sister, your brother, your spouse, whoever, whatever it is. Only 2 places on the planet. One's the Aramaic. That's what the worksheet is based on. The other is the Course in Miracles. And the Course in Miracles, and I think it's lesson 318, if I remember correctly, paragraph 7, it says, let go all the things you think you want, your goals, your trifling treasure, your goal, put away, and leave a clean and open space within your mind for Christ to come. Cancel the goal, perception collapses, the unconscious now becomes available, and you've got a clean and open space for active present love delivered through the breath to dissolve the trauma that's killing the cell and creating the warning signal called pain that you violated your own energy system.
Jeannie, that last 10 minutes should be clipped and put in on YouTube of Michael. That one really, I think, you know, you were you were divinely guided in the last 10 minutes, sir.
So I have a question then, because we don't share this. This is a closed group. Do I have each of your permission? Because I think you're right. I think it came together really nicely. Do I have each of your permission to clip this? Now we can take the video off. We don't need to do the video, but does that work? Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
If we do that?
Yes.
All right, we'll do it. Yeah. And you know, again, I can remember the early days of teaching this forgiveness process from the Aramaic. And when I was first introduced to it, you know, I had already developed a body of work, was already doing parallel work to this. And every once in a while, I'd refer to this canceling of a goal as forgiveness. And it was kind of almost flippant, like, you know, And over a period of time, I would have people that I'd shared that with who'd come back and go, you know, I've been canceling that goal, doing that canceling the goal thing. That's really powerful. I was like, really? Okay. And then that made me start to look deeper and deeper. And I mean, I taught that for literally 35 years before that piece finally came in. And it was like, that's why you do such a silly ass thing as cancel a perfectly good goal. You don't cancel the goal because you don't want it. You don't cancel the goal because you can't have it. You cancel the goal because you recognize every time you load it in your mind, it causes your mind to use pained information, sin, to build the world you see and paint on the inside of your eyeballs. And you got to collapse that world and drop into the unconscious. Now the unconscious has become conscious. And it no longer runs your life. I mean, literally, the minute you work through that, whatever that is, whatever your why is this happening to me again is, the minute you do that, think of yourself as a cell in this energy system called literally the whole creation. The minute you do that core piece of work, and you know, imagine my hands right now for the metaphor are you as an individual, literally the whole universe makes a shift. The whole universe turns around that, and the whole thing changes. That one's gone. You stopped creating that one. The whole universe shifts that one. And until you do, and you'll know whether you've done it or not, because if you haven't done it, you'll say, why is this happening to me again? Or more likely, you'll say, why are they doing this to me again? Or why am I doing this to myself again? It's just got to go.
I mean, I mean, the payoff for canceling the goal, you're absolutely spot on this. The payoff for canceling the goal is it gives me instant clarity, access what's going on in my unconscious so I can bring Rakama in. Otherwise, I'm just putting Rakama on top of my unconscious and it's just a shit show. So, you know, but canceling the goal is fantastic.
It's
to bring in the present. It's fantastic. Yeah. You bring in Rakama immediately and you bring there's a huge payoff. Canceling the goal is the payoff of clarity. It brings clarity.
Yeah. And also, you know, over the years, I've done many different workshops on stress. You know, there are lots of workshops I can tell you, well, you should breathe, you should do this, you should do that, you should eat better, you should rest, all kinds of things to alleviate stress. But I've never found anybody that can tell you what creates stress. What creates stress? Setting a goal. So it's a form of stress management. When you cancel a goal, you alleviate yourself of stress. You go back to Yeshua 2,000 years ago, and you wouldn't know he was teaching stress management when the Greeks tell us he said, let me get this correct. Sufficient for the day are the evils thereof. You say, what the hell does that mean? Sufficient for the day are the evils thereof. The word evil in Aramaic has two definitions. One relates to sin. You know, you fire at the target, you miss the bullseye, the scorekeeper yells sin. You miss the target altogether, and the scorekeeper yells evil. But there's a second definition, and the second definition is unripe or incomplete. Like if I have a green banana, that banana in Aramaic I would say is evil. If I have a banana that's all brown and mushy, that banana is evil. Not that there's anything wrong with it, it's just not ripe. In that nice yellow, lightly brown speckled place, that banana is ripe. It's no longer evil. It's in its state of its highest completion. So when Yeshua says, you know, sufficient for the day are the evils thereof, he's saying, don't have any more goals than you can complete in your next waking period. Because if you do, you'll be overloaded with stress. And when you're overloaded with stress, you lose resources. So that's another reason for a daily application of the forgiveness process. And, you know, we do a workshop called Getting the Stress You Need. Stress is your best friend. Without stress, you'd be dead. But do you design your stresses consciously, purposely? Or is it just, well, you know, I got these 1,000 goals unresolved from my generations, and they were enforced on me by my power person. So these goals are always in my mind. Therefore, I'm always in overwhelmment and overstressed. So canceling the goals reduces stress. When you reduce stress, you get your resources back. I mean, it's so genius. He put it out there 2,000 years ago, and it was totally shattered by the Greeks and the Latins. The Romans just made a mockery of it. Although it was interesting, our granddaughter goes to a Catholic school here in Bristol. It's actually one of the most respected schools in the city, and about 40% of the students that go to this school, it's called St. Anne's, are not Catholic. That's how well respected it is in this Baptist town. And actually, we've got a friend who is a school teacher. All his life, he's retired. We had lunch with him back a while back, and he said he's thought about going back to teach. And the only school, he was in the public school system. Really, really awesome guy. He said, if I thought about going back to teach, but if I went back to teach, I'd only teach at St. Anne's. And so we went to Christmas Mass with our kids and our granddaughter. And it was interesting because I really hadn't heard it before. But when they talk about forgiveness in this particular, you know, when they talked about forgiveness, they didn't speak about, and it's literally just a one letter different, the word. They didn't speak about forgiveness for sin. They spoke about forgiveness of sin. Now, unfortunately, they're mostly still talking about, you know, we're going to forgive somebody else, but just that one letter different. Forgiveness for sin, oh, let me off the hook, God. Or forgiveness of sin. Ruka, I need help alleviating myself of this generational information. Then you're never going to be forgiven for your sins. You know, the whole world has been fooled. I've seen bumper stickers on cars, you know, I'm forgiven. You're never going to be forgiven. Forgiveness, the creator who created you has never judged you. There's nothing that the creator could ever forgive you for. However, the creator is the elemental force. Ruka is the elemental force that knows how to move the energy in your structure, and therefore is the only one who can move that energy and carry out the forgiveness process. But you've got free will, and you got to give permission. If you don't give permission, it doesn't happen. So it's not about Go ahead, sweetie.
On our worksheets, first it talks about getting reconnected to love, and then you cancel your goal. You have to let it go. And then you invite Ruka or God or love or whatever. If you're going to hold on to it, and then you ask Ruka to help you with it, you've got will, so you can hang on to it, and she's not going to do anything with it. You have to let it go. You have to forgive, and then she will help you take care of the rest of it.
We've been teaching Arya about canceling goals, and she came home from school, several months ago. She said, I've been teaching my fans about canceling goals, but they just won't do it. So I just cancel it for them. Yeah.
And then she came in one day and she goes, I canceled the goal last week when this or that happened, but it happened again. Do I have to cancel it again, or is last week's good enough? It's like, no, you got to do it again.
But at 6, she's getting this understanding. It's just like, whoa. How different would each of our lives be if we just had this block of information today? How different would, if when we were 3, 4, 5, 6, we knew we could process out these generational dynamics? It's like, everybody breathing? Go for it, Julie.
Yeah, so yesterday in the session, I just didn't know what I was doing or who I was or if I was doing it right and all this stuff. And I just kept letting it go. And then today I was in this complete space of present moment, being a space of love, flowing along. The charge had been released,
Right.
removed. And I got to be again. And I wasn't in the figuring it out or trying to make it work, usually
Right.
like sometimes I am in StillPoint. And it's just was such a rich gift. And that's one thing, because I did get that experience. And then
Nice.
today I just want to share a really quick thing, because as you were talking with Terry, and you were talking about the unconscious, Carl Jung. And I was really getting that it's like and wanting, okay, all the things we want. It's like a storage unit, and we're hoarding all this stuff we think we want, and we want to really
Trifling
truly get
treasures.
rid of it. And that storage unit is being held in a space of love for us until we're ready to look into it and see what can be removed next.
Until we're ready to open the veil.
It's all love.
The veil of the temple must be rent in twain. You've got to open that barrier to be able to look inside of it.
So that's just
And
a
Jeannie,
little thing, a refreshing thought.
that's
Okay.
that's right on. And Jeannie, maybe put a link to the Facebook post. It snowed here a few days ago, and Aria, her mom had her out with the kids, and a friend of theirs was visiting, and the friend is kind of hiding behind Aria. I mean, she's a full-grown woman, so she's not fully hiding, but Aria's in front of her, and the friend is throwing snow up in the air, and Aria is singing that song, "Let it go, let it go." Cute. Put the link in the notes. It's a fun video. Let it go.
I would love a video of that, but you didn't do it, so it's in here.
Well, Jeannie will put the link in the note, so you'll have it.
Oh, good. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. May I ask also for wherever
Please.
it is in the A Course in Miracles, where you quote about trifling treasures is? You said it and it went by
I
me.
think it's lesson 318.
I have already put it in the notes, and it is
Just like you.
164.8
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 164.
out of the workbook, 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Open
Paragraph
the
8,
and you're practicing.
164.
Okay.
I keep going to
that's
318,
good.
but
I love that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
your trifling treasure put away and leave a clean and open space within your mind.
Trifling treasure in my storage unit.
Yeah. Yep.
Gosh, this is great. Thank
And
you.
most of what we say we want, we turn around backward and we talk about with our language what we don't want.
Yeah.
Don't look at me like that ever again. Don't ever do that to me. And when you realize you're a creator and it's all vibration, you just set up the vibration of exactly what you don't want. And that's what has happened with the non-being mind. It's all been turned around. So retraining yourself to think about what you do want is a major project, because you and I come from generations and generations and generations of people who gave us all instructions about what they didn't want us to do. Don't you ever be late for school again. Don't you ever forget your
Yeah.
homework.
Wow.
The
And that's a
whole
stress to cancel.
the whole speech system has to be restructured.
Yep. Wow.
And because it's such a massive database, it's always in resistance. And what is resistance? It's Satan. In Aramaic, the word Satan isn't some dude with a red suit, a tail, and a pitchfork. The word Satan means the resistor, one who misleads. And you look at the average person when they're asked to be responsible for their pained reality, what do? No, not me. They go into resistance, and then they've got a whole story about somebody else and how it's all their fault. That literally is being trapped in Satan, and most of the world lives there. But the meaning of the words has been changed, so we have no idea what we're doing to ourselves. That's where, that workshop we do, Aramaicisms. I coined that phrase to represent the effort to bring us back to the original Aramaic meanings of the words, because it's the only place you find this stuff.
I'm excited about all the good homework I have. Thank you.
All right.
Michael?
Yes, sir.
With all the different programming we have and the constant creation that we're having, I guess in my Catholicism upbringing, you basically you call on spirit to give you guidance to set your goals. Ask spirit, what is your goal? So you can bypass that. I guess I'm answering my own question, but I start identifying different things I want to create, goals I have, unconscious goals that I'm constantly doing. I'm like, oh, that's because I saw that person have that, and do you truly believe that those goals will be dropped into us for our short time on this planet upon what we're supposed to do? Because, that's all I want to do is do God's will at this point in my life. I'm like, you know what? I get it. All this other stuff is a bunch of bullshit. Just give me guidance. Where do I fit into this picture?
We have a worksheet for that. That's one of the core issues.
I wanted an answer, not work. I didn't want to fucking find out.
Oh, you just want the ice cream cone.
Yeah, well, do you blame me?
You don't want to have to stir the cream.
Okay. Yeah, no, the worksheet to clear the way for this information to come in. Is that what you're saying?
Well, when you think about energy systems bring through more and appropriate energy by being aligned with that energy. If somebody goes up on the roof of my house and turns my antenna backward and bends all the arms in the antenna, I don't get a very good picture of channel 2. If I go back there and restore the arms to their proper shape, because shape determines frequencies received, and I turn the antenna back around, all of a sudden channel 2 is crisp, clear. There's a full, proper flow of energy. So it's about alignment. The world has a purpose for you. It's brainwashed you. It's brainwashed me. It's brainwashed all of us. They want us to be good commercial servants. Forget anything to do with your purpose. So we do a workshop called Purpose, Personal Power, and Commitment. And Jeannie, let's put the link to that workshop in the notes today. So, and it goes through the fact that we each have a primary purpose. which I hear you referring to. And the primary purpose is really simple. It's the same for every human being: to develop a viable, conscious spiritual body, to outlive your form should it die, because you're conscious as a human being. So that's the primary purpose. And then to align that, and here's where the workshop, the key or the core of the workshop comes in, is a worksheet process, step by step, for determining what your secondary purpose is. Like how are you designed to express in this world and achieve your primary purpose? So the secondary and primary purposes become key. Jean, do you have your purpose statement handy? So,
Michael, real
yes.
quick, do you have any in the Mind Shifters? Have you done a section on this? It would be really good.
On purpose?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there is.
Okay, thank you.
So, and I've watched lots of people's lives totally turn around when they determine what their purpose is. You want to read have you got your Sandy, Jean? If not, I've got it here.
I've got it. I now
Okay.
use my deep devotion to my family and friends to be supportive, enjoy time together, listening and sharing. I will nourish and comfort others as I create a safe space for healing to happen. I will use my writing abilities to produce a book that shares my experiences of healing and expresses the potential and hope to others. I now use my love for learning to search for truth, and then to use my teaching skills to share my highest understanding with those whose paths I cross. I now use my intuition, my inner tutor, to follow in the way of peace. I will stay committed, fully aware, responsible, and connected to God. I will radiate the love in me to be a clear voice to my calling, so that my life produces a longing in others to follow in the way of truth, to join me on the path, and to likewise make a difference. I will use my organizational and administrative skills in accord with this purpose. I have to have such an impact on this planet that we create the shift where we all experience our being, love, and live in truth and harmony as God originally planned.
And Jeannie, I don't know that I've really deeply thanked you in the way that I'm feeling it right now for living that purpose. Thank you.
And, when I originally did my purpose statement back in I don't remember when, I rewrote it I guess the first one was in 2003, and I rewrote it in 2017. And originally I did not have anything about family in there. And then we did an intuitive development intensive in Oak Island, probably 28. Well, I guess it was 2017. That's when I rewrote
2017, yeah.
And one of the exercises that we did was we sat in front of another person. We closed our eyes. They wrote down everything that we said, so we didn't have to keep up with it. And they said, "Who are you?" I'm Jeannie. Well, who are you? Well, I'm a mother. Well, who are you? Well, I'm a sister. Well, who are you? I'm a wife. Well, who are you? And they just kept going for like 15 minutes. And then the second question was, why are you here? And then you answered that. And when I looked at that, I realized that most of my answers had to do with family and support. And that wasn't even in my original purpose statement. And so I rewrote it to incorporate that. And, just like when we moved here to take care of Dad, and then with Ryan and everything, I'm on purpose. And if I'd kept my original one, which didn't have anything about family in it, then I would have felt like I'm not on purpose here doing this. But since I had rewritten it and realized that what I was doing here in Bristol was totally on purpose.
And the worksheet in that workshop is a worksheet for bypassing the brainwash of the culture, because the culture has a purpose for each of us that it instills in our minds very early, very quickly, and wants to take over our lives. That's what the culture does. And so the worksheet process, there's a 3-step process for bypassing that brainwash and getting back to who you really are and why are you really here. And, the secular world has no damn or concern about whether you're a human being or whether you're designed as love or whether you have an eternal life or anything else. It's like, get a job, make money. And so that the worksheet bypasses the brainwash, and it's something that once somebody starts working with, I suggest they keep a 3x5 card in their wallet, and they constantly refine it. And it usually takes 2, 3, 4, 5 years to really get crisp and clear on purpose. And then recognizing, again, you're an energy system, you align your primary purpose with your secondary purpose, and then whatever you're going to do, you make sure it's aligned with Rachma, and whatever word action you take, it's always on purpose. It's in alignment with that. And that's where you get to personal power. And that's the third step in it. It's personal, or the second step is how you acquire personal power. And for me, it's my purpose I worked on for years, and here's what it looks like now, what I function from now. I now use my being, compassion, caring, processing capacity, an ability to nurture people, along with my communication skills, an ability to synthesize information, to gently inspire people, and learn and teach true forgiveness on a planet-wide scale. As my beloved and I travel the planet, every interaction we have inspires each person who hears us to contact and express their highest creative abilities and being, so that together we create a world where each supports every other in full expression of their essence and purpose. Defining and setting plans and goals that supports full achievement of this purpose, and doing the things to carry it out while maintaining time for each other, to play, to keep romance alive and heal together, are easy, automatic, and are supported by Ruka in all of life. So whenever I'm going to do something, I compare it with that. Is it in line with that? If it's not in line with that, it doesn't matter how attractive it is. It might be worth $1 million. In fact, I've had significant things. Early in doing this work, and after I understood what my purpose was, I actually had a fellow who wanted to fund a business and offered me a Mercedes and $100,000 a year, which was back when I had small kids and I was having trouble feeding them. But it wasn't on purpose for me. It's like, thanks. That would really be fun if I really didn't care and all I want to do is make money. That would be awesome, but it doesn't align with my purpose. And so some things that you might otherwise even enjoy doing, you stop doing because they're not on purpose. And then there are other things that, maybe you really don't particularly enjoy or even want to do, but you do it because it's on purpose. Changes the whole game. And that alignment is what brings the real flow of energy through us as human beings to function as we're truly designed to function, would be my offering.
That's helpful. Jeannie, you've explained that one to me before in the past. No, that's very helpful. I look forward to that worksheet. And one of the things that, is kind of what I mentioned about, getting the answers, demanding answers from the Holy Spirit or whatever is kind of, immature in a way, but also, what you mentioned about the skeleton antenna, right? And it's interesting how, all the different saints and prophets or whatever used to always talk about it. Nothing ever came to them except when they're on a hike. When you go on a physical hike, there's something about information and spiritual growth, and maybe it opens up that antenna analogy that you use with your skeletal system.
Except that the antenna isn't an analogy. It's,
Correct.
it literally.
No, right, correct. But the TV antenna is the analogy, but the
Oh, right,
skeleton
right. But your own structure, yeah.
is an antenna, correct.
Yeah.
And
that's where the energy field works with bringing the antenna into alignment, and then the quantum still point process goes right to the core of the antenna, where most people tend to have the whole thing locked up and without physical support really have a challenge getting past that. And that's where that works. Everybody breathing with us? I love it. It's like, yes, And once you realize it's there to be done, it's like, what else is there to do? Go ahead, Julie.
Well, I'm excited, and I'm just gonna say it now. I want to be in the workshops that you're gonna be doing this May, if you put it, if you do. And I'd also, I know all of us end up really helping with the food in the kitchen, but I'm willing to be of some assistance in whatever way you
Awesome.
need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's one
Yeah.
more vote that says, yes, we're going to do that, those intensives. Okay.
And I am gonna
Cool.
be in the United States in that time period, so that'll be good too.
Perfect.
So I can have
Awesome.
some of my alignment work with you too, the quantum.
Well,
So
maybe we
it
can
seems like
set that up.
it's
Yeah, you
unfolding.
said you wanted to do that, and maybe we can set that up so you come a few days early and we do the quantum still point work first. Because that'd be perfect then to go into the intensive.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Thank
mean, it'd
you.
be good to do on the other side, but I think it'll be better to do at the front end. So yeah, we'll set that up.
Okay,
Cool.
good, thanks.
Awesome. Anyone else? Thoughts, questions, answers, ideas? Something moving for you, something to share, something you want support with? Well, then I'm going to, oh, go ahead, Tim.
You said something yesterday very profound that kind of stuck with me about somewhere along the line, your energy put this person into a pattern where they're on a pattern to have an accident or whatever.
Right.
Which made me start thinking about the energy patterns of the Kennedy family, the Kennedy curse, and that type of stuff. And obviously I brought it home to my own kids and all that kind of stuff.
Breathing.
You really believe that?
No, I don't believe it. It's just a physiological fact. It's the way the energy system, to me, one of the objectives of this work is to move out of all the BS, all the belief systems about bodies and, planet, all that stuff, and get down to seeing everything through the eyes of energy. That's like the bottom. That's the thing that ties the whole thing together. That's at the root of it all. So seeing it through the eyes of energy. And by definition, energy is motion. There's only energy, at least according to Einstein, and I kind of take his word for it. There's only energy. And if there's only energy and energy is motion, then you recognize that wherever there is motion, that motion creates a wave. If I throw a pebble in a pond, the motion of that pebble hitting that pond creates a wave. If I'm standing underwater with a pail and I'm swinging that pail around underwater, there's a wave moving out 360 degrees from that pail. The interaction of the pail with the water creates a wave. When a thought moves in us, by definition, it's energy, it's motion, and its motion creates a wave. Now, if I've got, let's say, well, I've got lights in the room. If I step outside of the room and close the door, I'm not going to see these lights anymore because the wave coming off the light is absorbed by the walls. It doesn't come out the other side. It's literally absorbed into the wall and it's not available on the other side. But if I say had a broadcast station in here, I've raised the frequency, and the frequency of the broadcast station goes right through the wall. I get to hear the broadcast on the other side of the wall. The matter, or the energetic thing we call matter, is not dense enough. While it stops the light wave, it's not dense enough to stop the radio wave. It's a finer frequency, passes right through. If I line the wall with tin, if I make what they call a Faraday cage, I line it with iron, I can have a broadcast station here. Nobody hears the thing because it's all the energy of the broadcast is absorbed by the density of the wall. If I want to get something outside of the wall, I'm going to have to, outside of the iron cage, I'm going to have to go to a higher frequency. What am I going to go to? I can go to an X-ray. Now I need 1/8 of an inch of lead to stop that. That's the only thing dense enough. The point of that whole story being that each time we get something that passes through, we've gotten a finer wave that the spaces, the atomic structure of the lead, there's certain space and the X-ray goes through it. The radio wave doesn't. It's dense enough that it stops, captures all the radio waves. There's nothing on the other side. So the point of that being that there's nothing we know of that can stop the high energy wave that leaves the mind when we think a thought. There's just nothing we know of that can do it. It passes through everything we call matter. So it doesn't matter if somebody's on the other side of the planet. If you have a thought about them, energetically, the only place that thought can land, the only place the radio wave can land is where there's an antenna that matches it, that's in resonance with it. If I've got an FM broadcast signal here, I can sit in the next room for the rest of my life and try to tune my AM radio, and I'm not going to get that station. I mean, it's right here in the house. Why shouldn't I get it? Because it's not in the same frequency range. The place where the high energy waves that leave our mind think in terms of thinking thoughts, the place where those energetic patterns land is in the receiving systems that have the closest resonance or match. Who do you suppose that's going to be? It's the people we're closest with. It's the people we have developed the deepest resonance with. And hence, I come up with that thought of, having children is like having your unconscious mind hang out in true living color and Dolby sound. They're going to reflect everything because they're made of the same genetic material we're made of. They are perfectly attuned to us. So it doesn't matter where they are. What is moving in me moves in them. What moves in them moves in me. If I choose to forgive and remove that alignment, then that, energetically, that's one less vote for them ever doing that. The more I rail on them about don't do this, the more I'm voting for them energetically to do it. The more I'm supporting them energetically, if they're unconscious, in doing whatever it is that moves in them. When I remove that energy from me, when I forgive that energy from me, I'm no longer a vote for that happening for them. And I've opened an energy window because they're made of the same stuff, the same energetic stuff I am. I've opened an energy window for them, made it easier for them to also remove that energy pattern from their field. Otherwise, they'll play it out. The more people that work through an issue, the easier it is for every person on the planet. Again, here's Yeshua talking about a little leavening. Leavens the whole loaf. The more people work through a particular issue, abuse, terror, trauma, whatever it is, the more the energy system is able to, in any given individual, open and allow that forgiveness to happen in that person. To me, I can remember a stage in doing this work where it was like, God, you got to get to every person like Gaddafi and Bush, and I mean everybody. You got to change all those violent, vicious minds. And then that piece came in about, a little leavening. So we don't have to change every violent mind on the planet. All we need to do is change the one space, the 2 square feet we've got control of, and we've changed the planet. Inspire enough people to make that shift that we reach critical mass, and then the whole game changes for everybody. Doesn't matter how deeply embedded somebody is in the insanity. Once the active presence of love, that line in the worksheet that says, when I choose love, it wakes up the love in everyone. If I had a middle C tuning fork on a desk and I put it in front of a second middle C tuning fork, that second tuning fork doesn't have any choice. The simple law of resonance means it's going to start to vibrate. It's going to take on some of that energy and move. If I am more committed to my purpose of functioning as love, as a human being, then that energetic pattern has to resonate the same energy in everyone it touches.
So we're walking around little leavenings.
Yes, that's the idea. And we're leavening for, there's leavening for the hate and the fear and the rage and the guilt and the abuse and the power
Yeah.
games and all, and there's the leavening for being human.
Mhm.
And the non-human stuff's got a lot of resonance going on.
They just forgot who they are.
That's the bottom line.
That's
Yeah.
what Arya said.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, you sound like Arya, or she sounds like you a lot.
Yeah.
And we've
Share
talked
that,
too.
Arya. Jeannie, that's so powerful. Share that.
I think
That
I
just
shared
happens.
it the last time
Oh,
when we
okay.
had gone to the beach with them, and her other grandmother was kind of in a snit and kind of snapped at her. And I said, sweetie, I said, it's not about you. And she goes, I know, she just forgot who she is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's cute.
But we've taught her too, you know, to watch your words and that, and what you ask for, you know, through your words. And just an example, you know, don't fall down the steps. The focus is on falling down the steps. And so we say, oh, cancel that thought, you know, stay safe on your feet, you know, or whatever. And she does that all the time. And Ryan and Gabby said she wears them out sometimes. They'll say something and she'll go, cancel that thought, cancel that thought.
It's interesting because she knows around us that that's just not a game we play. Her parents are not, they've done one of our intensives and they've been around the work, but then it's not their thing. And so there's some other dynamics that play out between her and her parents. And oftentimes when she's going to play one of those things out, she knows it because she'll look at me. If I'm there, she'll look at me like, I'm going to do it anyway, Papa. And she'll do it. It's stuff that she would never do or pull around us. She does with her parents. That's, you know, what they're working on, what they've got to do. But it's funny because she gets this little sheepish grin on her face and looks at me before she does it. It's like, I know I shouldn't be, but I'm gonna. We were at dinner the other night, and she, you know, her mother's telling her, "Don't do, don't." And Arya looked at me when she did it again. You know, it's just what she does. It's kind of fun. Yeah.
The teaching, I mean, for her, it's a game. She's a little guru. She knows she's going to do what they said not to do because she knows how her mind focuses on that. And she's going to teach them until they learn.
It's hilarious, I'll tell you.
So
It is
cute.
hilarious.
Well, I totally feel renewed and refreshed, and I
Yay.
feel so unified with you people here sharing all this with us. You know, I'm looking forward
Honored.
to the intensive that may come, you know. I mean, that's going to be a real gathering if word gets out.
Cool.
Whenever it works for you guys, I'm patient.
Okay. Well, we've got the inquiry in and the date set aside for the 2nd of May. And now that we're kind of back here and, you know, the next week or so, we've still got a lot going on with Ryan, but once we get past that, we'll start to work on that again and get it solidified. So cool. Awesome. Anybody else? Any thoughts? Well, I'm complete if you guys are, and I'm here if you're not. Anything else to
What's
cover?
the next date we have, you guys?
Be the 3rd Saturday and Sunday of February.
So that's February the 15th and 16th.
2 days after my eternal day.
I thought you're the 13th, aren't you?
13th.
His is
February
the
13th.
13th. So 2
And
days
this will be
later,
the
the
15th,
15th.
16th.
Oh, 15 and 16, yeah.
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
what you call it, the eternal day?
We don't celebrate birthdays in our family. We celebrate eternal days. And when people ask me, how old is Arya? I say she isn't. And they kind of go, what do you mean? Well, she's been circling the earth for 6 years, but she's not old. And notice how it's built into our language. How old is a 2-year-old? I mean, what are we doing to ourselves?
Mhm.
Planned obsolescence, planned self-destruction.
Wow.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a blessed one.